I finally finished with my lye. Sorry, Kylie. My bad. But check back in with us. We're getting started now on the next couple of steps for our soap making process, and you can see the final product and the unveiling of our soap.
Howdy, and welcome to the Bar SC Ranch, where you will experience our journey of running a family business, caring for animals, and doing life together. Subscribe now and be inspired here at the Bar SC.
So I've been mixing our lye water here for about 10 minutes now while Kylie's been doing her colors. And now we're fully incorporated, so all of the lye flakes have blended themselves, dissolved into the water. So now we're going to take our thermometer, remembering that our ice water was actually at 33 degrees by the end of it, about 33, and we're going to stick it into our lye water. And so the reaction of the lye and the water creates heat. It's exothermic, so that's why we're expecting the water to heat up. If the water doesn't heat up, there's a problem. Something has gone wrong. And we can see the water has very much so heated up. It's at 132.6. So it's actually heated by about 100 degrees from where it was at before. So 132.6 is not a bad temperature. What's a good temperature? We're going to wait for it to cool off just a little bit more though. We want it to be about below 130. I usually go for about 125 before we add in something known as sodium lactate, which is actually a salt. And we're going to use sodium lactate per pound of oil. We're going to add in about a teaspoon per pound of oil, and we're working with 3 pounds of oil. And this is going to aid in the hardness of our bar of soap and also make it a little less prone to being kind of flaky. So it creates a really nice, hard, shiny bar of soap that we can get out of our molds a little bit sooner. Sometimes you find that you'll have to wait a day or two before you can actually get your soap out of your mold and cut it. And we're planning on cutting our soap this evening. So we're going to add our sodium lactate in there, and we're going to add it into our lye once it's cooled below 130. So we're going to wait a few minutes for this to cool down. I've got a whole bunch of ice here. I might just set this in the top of the ice to make sure it cools off. So here's where the making of the soap actually begins. We have our lye water here and our mixture of all of our oils over here, and we have a little stick blender. So we're going to use our stick blender to start the mixing process. It's going to get a little loud, but I want you guys to be able to see what happens as we start to mix the lye water in with our oils. You'll actually see a very visible change throughout the process of saponification. And once we start this, we gotta go fast. It doesn't wait around for us. We will actually, if we wait too long in between mixing these two items and putting them in our mold, we will simply make a very large pail of soap. It will just turn into soap directly in our pan, and that's not fun. And there are ways to fix that, but they involve a whole nother day of soap making. So we're gonna do this right, and we're gonna do this somewhat fast. So I'm gonna pour this out into our oils, and Kylie's gonna take these two items and go wash them so that we can use them to make up fun colors. I'm gonna pour down the stick of my stick blender so that I can avoid making too many bubbles. You're never going to avoid all of the bubbles, but you can avoid making absolutely ginormous bubbles, because bubbles in your soap are going to cause little imperfections, little dents that you can see in your finished product. All right, Kylie, thank you. Now's when it's going to get a little loud, but you can see if you look down into the soap here that it actually has already changed colors. And I'm going to speed up the process of saponification with my blending, which is why now that I've added it, the process has started. But if I just leave it like this, we've got a little bit of time. It's not really until I start the blending process that it really gets fast. The next thing we're going to add, this little cup here, is filled with a fragrance oil. We're scenting this soap coconut cream, so it smells a lot like coconut scented kind of conditioners and shampoos and things like that. And we're going to do the same thing with this. We're going to pour it right onto our stick blender so that we don't create too many bubbles, and then set that to the side. And now Kylie's just finished washing off our little containers, which we're going to use to make our fun colors. So now I'm going to start the blending process. So as I'm blending, and you'll notice it's changing colors pretty dramatically, you know that it's working if it's changing colors. If nothing is happening, something has gone wrong. Maybe you're using not lye or something strange. But otherwise what we're looking for is something called trace. And trace is what we call, and they call it trace because you can take your stick blender out of the soap and actually trace your name into the top of it if you've reached a level of trace. So that means that as I pick up my stick blender and stuff drops down onto the surface of the soap, it would actually sit there on top and you'd be able to see where you have, you know, drawn your name. And so right now we have not reached any kind of a trace because as I pick my stick blender up, it's just pitter-pattering back into the water. So I'm going to continue blending until we reach a light trace. And the reason we're going for a light trace, which means it's a very subtle mark on the top of the surface, is because we're then going to be working with colors. And so we want to give ourselves enough time to actually effectively work with our colors and create the soap that we want. If I blend this until it's at a very heavy or thick trace, and then I attempt to put colors in it, what we're going to end up with is sludge. We're going to end up with what they call soap on a stick, which means it's now stuck to everything and it is no longer liquid at all. Just not what we want. So I'm going to continue blending for a few more minutes here until we're at a light trace, and then I'll show you what that looks like. So we've been blending for about 5 to 10 minutes now, and it depends on your recipe how long this step takes. And we've reached what's known as a light trace, like we said. It's very lightly, you can see, so I'm going to swirl my stick blender around, and as I lift it up, you see that it actually leaves an indentation there on top. And I can sort of draw on top of the soap with more of the batter. That means we're reaching a trace. So now we're ready to pour this mixture into 2 of our containers over here that Kailey so nicely prepared. And then we're going to add in some colorant. Alright, so now Kailey is going to add in our 2 colors right on top. And we're going to give them another little blend. Go work, Kailey. Now this is my favorite part of making soap, is watching the color change in the soap. So you're going to go ahead and see that. We're going to use a lower setting on our stick blender. I'm going to put it in and wiggle it around to get any air bubbles out. And give it a little blend. So, what color would you like on bottom?
That one.
Go ahead and pour that into our mold right here. Now pour it until we're about 1/3 of the way full, which probably is going to be just about all of it. Awesome. And now the next step to use this blue is that I actually think we're going to blend it till it's just a little bit thicker. Why don't you go ahead and use the rest of that pink and add a little bit into, let's see, how many sheep are we going to be able to make with this amount? Now is when we have to weirdly guesstimate and see. Go ahead and add pink into 4 of the sheep for me, please. And it doesn't have to cover the whole bottom. It can be like a, a cool pattern. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to give this another little blend while we're waiting. We are making very thick soap in our container, so we're going to need to hurry here in a moment. Okay. For right now, let's work with our blue. I'm going to have you pour, and I'm going to hold this. So we're going to start at this end, and you're going to pour onto my spatula. So we do this so that we don't accidentally punch through that bottom layer, because we're trying to make some light swirls. Or layers, I'm sorry. Now go ahead and pause for a second. And we're going to turn it this way so I can see what I'm doing to get this side. There we go. There you go. And this just allows it to be set down a little more gently. There you go. You can wiggle your thing around so it all comes out. There you go. You can wiggle it as you pour. Yeah, we're going to do a whole until we fill up this layer here. There we go. Getting into these corners. I'm going to get that corner, this corner, and then a little bit in there. Awesome. Good work. The rest of that can go ahead on in there. I'm going to smooth it out just a little bit. And again, there's nothing precise about this. Some people get very precise if you look at pictures on the internet. We're just going for pretty and fun. miserably at calculating how much mold space I needed for how much soap I was making. And that's fine, because we made it work. But that's very important to know, and the calculations are actually a little difficult to find out how much soap you're actually making per how much room you needed. So I made my recipe larger this time and made it just a little bit larger and said, well, now it'll just fit in the loaf really well. As you can see, I made like 6 sheep and several other soaps with all of the soap from this batch. So now we know, and now next time that I make this recipe, I know how much soap I'm getting into, and I'll have all my molds available for me to use as we're doing it. But now the next step, once I get these molds cleaned up a little bit, and if I'm going to make a little design in the top or add a little bit of glitter or whatnot, then we're just going to wait. And what we're going to do, which sounds a little funny, is cover all of the soap with towels. So we're going to cover the soap with towels as a way of insulating them and creating a little bit of heat. So the soap, as it saponifies, it's still sitting here saponifying, it creates a lot of heat. And the creation of that heat makes the soap go through what we call gel phase, which is what's going to make the soap very hard, a little bit shinier, and it's going to make the colors pop real well. And it also allows us to unmold it just a little bit faster. So I'm going to take all these molds, once I've cleaned them up a little bit, cover them in parchment paper, throw a towel over the top, and then leave them for a couple hours, and we'll back in with you when we're ready to unmold them. Alright guys, so now we're back. It's about 6 or so hours later. We let these guys gel, like I was just explaining to you. We covered them up in towels and let them heat up as the saponification process continued. And then when we were about ready to unmold them, we spent about an hour putting them in the fridge. Said that a little wrong. We didn't take an hour to put them in the fridge. They were in the fridge for an hour. Big difference there. It does not take that long to put them in the fridge. But just to show you, there's 3 that we've unmolded already, and those are our 3 paperweights here. And they look a little redonkulous. And I'm going to tell you why. So these are the ones that when we realized we had a little bit too much dough or batter, we ran up to another house really fast and grabbed another mold, because I actually hadn't planned appropriately enough for how much batter we were going to have. We had filled our other 2 containers and we needed more. So what happens with that, as you can see here, we have little indents in the soap where there are lines and places where there actually isn't soap filling in all of the holes. So it wasn't thin enough to actually sink into the mold and fill every little crevice. So if we had attempted to make sheep when it was that thick, they would not have looked like sheep at all. Because it wouldn't have gotten the detail that we're going to show you, hopefully. We haven't unmolded it yet. We don't know for sure, but pretty good chance. Of these guys over here. So they're going to be detailed on the one side, whereas these that sat there while we had to run and go get more molds are not. But that's fine. It's the same kind of soap. You can still wash your hands with it. It works exactly the same. It's just not as pretty. But otherwise, we're going to go ahead and get these sheep here. Do you want to hold this, Kylie, while I push up from underneath and try and pop something out? So these are our 2 that were also kind of at the end there. Ooh. So they don't have as many colors in them. But you can see the detail is all still there. Now let's get one of our pretty ones on this side, yeah. So to unmold them, I pull on our silicone mold a little bit, make sure it's popped off of all the sides, and then I push from underneath. And Kylie holding it helps, because then I can just push and grab it right out without worrying about it. Ooh. And look at that one. We got a little green here on the back, but mostly blue and purple on the front there. Let's try that one. Let's see if we got some pretty blue in there. Oh, yeah, we do. This one has a very strangely back left green foot. So up next is our loaf mold, which is going to be cut into bars. We have our little cutter here. These come in straight and wavy. We're going with wavy today because that just sounded like fun. It was Kylie's soap choice, so she wanted wavy. But otherwise, she got it out of the wooden part. Now she's peeling the sides back and off. And what we're checking for, if Kylie goes to pull the sides off and the soap bends or is really mushy or something like that, we're going to go, oh darn, and put it back in the fridge. Of course, if these guys are okay, this one should be also. But you never know. Sometimes things end up differently. You always want to be a little flexible with your plans. And it doesn't look like that's an issue, huh, Kylie?
Nope.
All right, you're going to go ahead and turn it upside down, kind of over my hands. And I'm going to see if I can catch it as it comes right on out. There you go. Go ahead and pull. There you go. That's it releasing. So these kind of form like a suction. Now that looks awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you, Kailey, for all of your awesome help. I hope we can make a lot of soap together in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you're interested at all in some of our handmade soap and other body care products that we're making here on the ranch, you know, that we just started here recently, we've been working on really hard. You can check it out in the link below to our online store where we sell, you know, our apparel, some fun ranch games, some other items, and now soaps and lotion and body care products. So check it out if you're interested, or let us know if you have any questions. We'd love to hear from you, and love it if you took home some of our awesome handmade soap.
If you enjoyed this video, we'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe, and leave comments about what you might like to see in future videos. We'll see ya back on the ranch.